Alrighty, so we're back to do some more videos for our character. So, of course, as we usually do, I'll go to File, Set Project, and I'll just go find our project for Project 6, right? Because that's our final one, our character. And you don't open the folder, right? You just select the folder and you hit Set. And then, of course, we can go File, Open Scene, and it's going to take us right to Project 6 project, Scenes, and there's our troll that we've been working on. We don't save that. Hit continue so it'll open up. And here's our troll. Now, what I wanted to show you in this video is how to make clothing. So at this point we've done most of the body. In the next video we're going to do the face. Then we'll kind of have some last little finishing touches videos, a quick UV unwrapping, texture lighting videos for later in the week. Just to kind of finish it up. The texturing is going to be quite quick and easy. It's unlike our last project. I just want you to kind of do it to have done it. So it's a small portion of the grade. It's it's pretty much participation based. So don't spend a lot of time on it, but it'll be great to kind of use the unfold tool one more time and do it on a character. It'd be great to just take the character in the mud box and just do a super simple quick color map where you just have a little bit of different colors on it. Something that you can spend like 10 minutes on. And then we'll just bring it back and throw a quick light or two on a floor for our troll and be done. But the bulk of this, the bulk of the grade is easily the modeling, the edge loops, the shaping of the model. There's going to be a couple points for things like outliner and render and texture, but the bulk of the points are going to be for the modeling. All right, so what we want to do is I want to show you guys how to make clothing, right? Because we have kind of this little kind of clothing on our character, and this is going to be cool because it's going to allow me to show you a few more tools, which will be great to see. So we'll kind of take a look at those. One we've already seen before. In this case, it's going to give us a great start for this, right? So in this case, I'm just going to go to my symmetry, right? Symmetry, we'll go to topology because it's better to use on this one. Remember, you pick an edge down the center. And then I'm going to hold down right mouse button and go to face mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, face. And there's our face selections. And what we could do is we're really just going to select some polygons kind of for the legs and the chest, right? So something like that. However, where you want to select them is fine. It was easy enough to do a quick little box select, right? Just left click drag, box select. Then just grab kind of, up to here on the legs, and then kind of up to about the waist there. Remember, if you need to, you can always shift left click on a face, and then shift left click on the face next to it, and that'll do a face loop to kind of add to it, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy those, right? Now, the nice thing is we've done this before, right? We've seen this several times. We did it for our drawers, for our desks, our end table. We did it for part of our brace on our lamp, right? Even the kind of little cover for the wheels on our office chair. So this will be just one more nice opportunity to do Edit Mesh Duplicate. So we select the faces we want to select, and we go to Edit Mesh menu, and we go to Duplicate, because that's going to duplicate those faces into their own object. Now you notice this does go to low res. That's okay. It's supposed to do that. And you'll see there's a green and a white wireframe. It's supposed to do that. You'll now notice you also see this kind of blue arrow. If you see kind of more the full manipulator where you kind of have the rotate handles as well, that's fine. It's basically still giving the same controls. You'll just grab the blue arrow on that one. This just allows us to move this off just a little bit, right? And then of course I'll hold down right mouse button and go to object mode. And I can select the body. And you notice how kind of a lot of the body's still looking pretty good, but the hands and the feet and the toes are looking pretty blocky. Remember, we're working in smooth preview for this, so we are planning on smoothing this model up one more time at the end. We're really close to the end. But in this case, we're just going to kind of get that kind of set back to smooth preview. This one we can keep low res. That's fine. We're going to kind of use some retopo tools on it. So, with that being said, that's now copied. We're not going to thicken it quite yet, but it would be thickened as it usually is. But in this case, what we want to do is we want to actually show you guys how to build these straps, right? And this is going to allow me to talk to you guys about retopologizing. Now, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in the conference as well. Retopologizing is become quite important to our industry in the last several years, right? What you can do is you can actually basically trace or draw new polygons on an already existing mesh. Now, what's cool about this is a couple things. One is you can actually use it like we're going to use it this semester, because we're not going to use it the hard way, we're going to use it the easier way. Just kind of build some clothing and some armor. It's a great way to just kind of draw some new polygons on a surface that don't necessarily follow its edge loops, right? So it's actually great for doing that stuff when you want to build some clothing or armor that that follow the shape of the body, but don't necessarily follow the edge loops of the body. Now, that's one of its great uses, and it's totally awesome for using that. And I use it for that all the time. And that's what we're going to use it for our project here. But one of the things you can actually use it for is, believe it or not, actually rebuild parts of an actual character. Yeah, you might see some videos out there where somebody just starts to build fully in ZBrush, right? Sculpting, blocking in, the mesh is hundreds of thousands of polygons, and it looks great, but it's not polygonally efficient, and the edge loops are horrible. So what you have to do is you actually basically have to rebuild that mesh by basically tracing polygons on the surface that follow the contours of the muscles and the body, you know, the radial patterns of the eyes, and basically rebuild the mesh to be lower resolution, more efficient, and have good edge loops, right? And this has actually become quite popular. We've been focusing more on the box modeling method because it's kind of a great classic method. If you're doing a more stylized character, particularly very simple stylized character, honestly still faster and easier just to do box modeling. If you're doing a far more complicated character with really intricate, complicated bone muscle structures that's really alien, you might find yourself a little more drawn to just sculpting and worrying about the edge loops later on. My personal method is actually a hybrid method. Maya doesn't really truly support this right now. Even Blender doesn't really truly support it. One of the only packages that I know of that I've used on a regular basis that I know for a fact can support the hybrid method truly is what I use at home, Modo. Because you can actually box model but turn on high resolution sculpting and kind of high resolution sculpt while you can still do the kind of low resolution box modeling. And then you can freeze it down and retop just what you want. So I love retopping parts of my characters, retopping for arms. I'm actually a big fan of being able to sculpt some shapes and forms and retopologize. That's kind of a little bit tricky to teach on an intro model. And it's still great to know how to do core box modeling for characters and creatures. It's still one of those techniques that's still quite useful in many situations. In fact, building things like arms, legs, fingers, and toes, it's still super easy to do it that way. And it's just the weirder shapes and forms that sometimes are easier just to sculpt with high resolution polygon meshes and then worry about the edge loops later on. And I myself do that, right? Like I said, but I do work in a software that facilitates that a little bit better than say Maya or Blender or a lot of software that's out there. So you will get to see and explore much more in-depth retopologizing of whole models in upper division modeling courses. That's just one of those things we don't cover in this one, but I like to expose you guys to the basics of it in a simple form with our troll here. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to select our body, right? Because we can keep the reference images, remember, in Channelbox Layer Editor. Remember, the reference image is in its own layer, it's referenced, so it's locked, you can't select it. But we do want to select our body, right? And what we want to do with our body is we know we have these magnets up here, right? And we have our snap to grid, and this allows us to snap to the grid unit. Snap to curve allows us to snap points to a curve. We saw that when we did our bi-rail exercise for our little mini boat. Snap to vertex we saw can be used for kind of some cool precision modeling and aligning. But this very last magnet, right? The one that's a magnet just by itself is called Make Live. And as long as you select an object, in this case the body, I can click on that last magnet to make it live. Right? See how it's live? And you'll notice you can't select it now, right? But what you can do is still go back and grab the clothes, right, the pants, and we can easily now turn our retopo tool on, right? I'm going to show you where the retopo tool is, but we do have to make live, right? So the body we want to draw on, right, the object we want to draw on, in this case the body, is the thing we select and we make live, right? Until you click on that make live to turn it off, that will remain unselectable. Some of you guys might have run into that sometimes where you couldn't select the model, right? And then I was like, is there a magnet on? And you're like, yes, that's why, all right? You accidentally turned make live on. In this case, it was just the body we wanted live because we want this to be something we can interact with, the shorts. And we saw that you can actually do a lot of clothing and armor just by copying polygons off, right? In this case, we already had the edge loops that would work well for the shorts just from the body itself. But we could see this strap going up doesn't really follow the edge loop contours of the body. So retopping this is going to be useful. So with Make Live on for the body, we then select the clothing. And you'll notice in the modeling toolkit, there is an area called Quaddraw, right? So in the modeling toolkit, there's an area called Quaddraw. We click on that, right? And all of a sudden that selected object, see how it kind of becomes this bluish color? And we'll scroll down, there's options like auto weld, which is usually on by default. Right now it's set to default extend just edges. If you go to the keyboard mouse shortcuts, it'll tell you some of the shortcuts themselves right here, right? So you have like a little kind of shortcut list of some of the features it does. We're not going to use all the features, right? But it never hurts to kind of at least talk about some of them. If you go to live constraint options, you can kind of play with the mesh color and how transparent it is and all that stuff, right? So, so you can kind of adjust those things if you want to a little bit. But simply put, what our retopo tool is going to allow us to do is basically, one, if you left-click drag on what's already there, you'll notice, and you'll notice the symmetry doesn't really work well for this one. So it's okay, we might just mirror it over, or we could just turn Quaddraw off, right? And maybe just go back in here and go to topology and kind of turn symmetry on for this, right? So we can turn symmetry on just for this object. So in this case, I just went back in there, you know, for the body, topology, picked an edge, and now we've got symmetry on for that. Of course, we'll make sure to go into Quaddraw. There we go. And you see how symmetry is working now? So you can still do symmetrical modeling, right? But one of the things you'll notice is you can left-click drag, just like you're tweaking, these edges and forms, right? And you'll notice that this stuff basically is still going to stick to the body, right? So this is one of the cool things, is that when this is live, you'll notice that you can kind of move this stuff around. You see how it actually is sticking to the surface? It's like it's sliding along the surface. So that's one of the neat things about this make live function, is that by default, just clicking on an edge, vertex, or face allows you to tweak it, right? And it'll stick to the surface. And one of the things you can do is if you hold down Control, you'll notice you actually can put an edge loop in, right? Depending on which direction it is. But if you hold down Control while Quaddraw is on, see how Quaddraw is on. So once Quaddraw is on, you're in Quaddraw mode, right? And you notice it puts an edge loop in there, and it's not sticking perfectly to the surface. In this case, it actually is. It's the body, right? Because this is the other stuff. But you now have that, right? So kind of cool to know about that, right? And Control will just allow you to put more edge loops in if you need to, right? Now, if you scroll down here into that keyboard shortcut settings, you'll see that it does have a lot of quick keys in here, right? And some of the stuff you might want to do are things like, you'll notice you can actually, where is it? Let's see here. You notice you can actually drag, tweak an edge loop, right? And you see that's Control Shift middle mouse button. So if I hold down Control Shift middle mouse button, you see how you can actually slide this edge loop along the surface, right? If you Control Shift left click, it deletes it, right? You can kind of see that that's right there as well. Control Shift left mouse button. So it's kind of neat to know about these little keyboard shortcuts for this if you need them, right? But Control Shift middle, right, is a great way to kind of tweak a whole edge loop. So if you want to kind of just move some of these over a little bit just to kind of get them fitting to the body a little better, you might find it's kind of neat to do that with this tool. But you'll notice we can kind of just do a little bit of reshaping. We can hold down Control to put in more edge loops here. And you see how it's kind of conforming. And it's trying to conform to the low res. So this might even be one of those things where you might feel better doing this at the end. And also we're going to smooth preview this up later on anyways, so probably don't need quite as many of those edge loops in there. But I just want to kind of show you guys that you could do that, right? You can modify what already exists. It is going to use the low res instead of the smooth preview. So you might even do the clothing after you've completed the model. Totally up to you. There's no right or wrong in the order that you want to do this in, right? It might even be that you kind of start off the simple duplication of the shorts and then wait to finish it later on. So with this, because it's its own object, you can kind of do it whenever you want to. I want you to do it, but you can kind of do it whenever you want to. So in this case, some of the other things we can do. Well, Control, let's put edge loops in. Control Shift middle allows us to tweak existing edge loops. But if you just left click, it creates points. So I'm just left clicking and it's creating points here. So just left click. And you'll notice as we're creating points, I can go back and I can tweak these points as well, right? But you'll notice they are actually sticking to the surface, right? And what we can do is we can keep just kind of clicking points. You notice I'm kind of doing two at a time, not too far spaced apart, because generally we want our overall polygon distribution to be pretty uniform. but we're drawing these points kind of in pairs. So just left clicking creates points. Now, if you hold down Shift, you'll notice that when I go in between kind of this polygon and these points, it looks like it can create a polygon. That's because when you Shift left click, it can. So you see I'm just Shift left clicking, Shift left click, Shift left click, Shift left click. And all of a sudden you see how it can actually start to build up this strap. And we do the same thing on this side, so I'll kind of do a little more on this side here, maybe bring these guys over. And you see how you can kind of tweak the shapes as you go, right? You don't have to, you can totally modify whatever you want, and that's just left click, right? You just left click on the mesh. Whatever vertex edge or face there, you left click and it does it. You know, bring that over a little bit. But if I just left click off of the mesh, right? In this case, off something selected, but you see how now when they highlight blue, that means you can tweak those. So you can actually still tweak those vertices even if they're floating. We'll just do some more left clicks, right? Left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, left click. Kind of another one right up there. Don't worry about this being super, super perfect, because remember, this is going to be smoothed out later on. Left click, left click, left click, left click. But we're doing it in pairs, so this will make quads when we want to make them. Now, the nice thing is you'll see any place you hold down Shift, right? So that was just left clicking, right? If I hold down Shift, just hold down Shift, and you move your cursor, you see how it wants to draw polygons in between those vertices? So that's what Shift, hold down Shift, left click does, is it makes those new polygons. And you see that what you can do is you could basically draw your own geometry on the mesh. And you see you can kind of keep going in here and tweaking it to get the kind of shape adjusted better. And it is trying its best to stick to the surface pretty well. Remember, it is trying to stick to kind of the low resolution of the body. So it might not be super, super 100% perfect, but good enough. And you, like I said, you can actually use this to rebuild a character's face, a character's head. If you have a weird kind of like shelling that comes off the body that you want to be in the base mesh, you redraw that, right? So believe it or not, you can actually do high resolution sculpting and not worry about the edge loops for everything. And you can actually use this tool, the Quaddraw, to redraw that part of the mesh into the rest of it, right? You could actually, if you had most of it built well, you could always just delete that part that you don't like and kind of have a second high resolution model, and then just like this, kind of have the body to here and then kind of rebuild the rest of it and connect it up like this. We're keeping it simple and just using it for some simple armor, but you can do a lot with retopo tools. So that's one of the things you can do, right? You can hold down Control to put an edge loop in anywhere you want to. Control Shift Middle will allow you to tweak an edge loop. Just left clicking will allow you to tweak also. But also just left click allows you to draw points. But there's another thing you do. Tab, right? If I hold down Tab, the Tab key, right? You can actually extrude border edges off. So just like extruding border edge, you can actually extend your geometry that way also. Just hold down Tab, right? And you notice when it gets close, it does an auto weld, right? That's what that auto weld does. These actually auto weld to each other. So you could easily just kind of use Tab to extend, or if you prefer just left click, Shift, left click, you do that, right? So let's do a little more of this extending. Tab, left mouse button. But gotta be careful, right? Tweak it a little bit. Then hold down Tab, left mouse button. Boom, there we go. You'll notice if you hold down Tab, middle mouse button, it can extend a whole edge loop, right? And you see how it'll allow you to do auto welds there. So you can actually extend whole edge loops up just by holding down Tab, middle mouse button instead of Tab, left mouse button. And once again, if you go to keyboard mouse shortcuts here, you will see that it's in here. See, Tab, left mouse button extends border edge. Tab, middle mouse button extends border edge loop, right? And this only works on border edges. This is basically just our extrude border edge method. It's just built into the Quaddraw tool. So when you actually start to kind of understand how this works, and you see how sometimes the symmetry doesn't work perfectly, we can always delete half of it and mirror it over later on, so don't sweat that too much, right? So down Tab, left mouse button is to extrude this a little more, just to get some practice to that. Tab, left mouse button. You're kind of bring it in here, get a little bit of that shape for that little kind of tippy top thing coming out here. And of course, maybe Tab, left mouse button. There we go. Tab, left mouse button. And you'll see it'll do a pretty good job auto welding. There we go. But you see you can actually rebuild this whole thing. Now at this point, we can actually probably make quads here. So if I just make a little left click for a single vertex there, I can then hold down Shift, left click, shift, left click. Sometimes you zoom in a little bit to get it better. Shift, left click, shift, left click. So just by left clicking a single vertex there, I was then able to just do a little bit of shift left clicking to finish this part off. Now we really just need this one out here. Now once again, like we said, this could actually be something we could easily do with our tab, right? Tab left mouse button to kind of, come on, tab left mouse button. All right, in this case, it's actually acting a little weird there. So we'll just do left click, just to get a few of those in. And then shift left click, and then we should see tab should work okay. Sometimes it just gets a little weird. But the nice thing is you'll see that the overall Maya retopo tools are pretty good. Pretty versatile, pretty flexible. All your major functions are in them. Remember, tab left allows you to extrude, right? Just left clicking on a vertex or edge or face allows you to tweak its shape. And of course, even things like shift left click allow you to build a polygon. And that's how we can retopo to kind of build kind of the rest of that gear there. And that's really just the Quaddraw tool, right? Remember, left clicking makes points. Shift left click will create polygons in between those points, right? Tab left click will allow you to drag an edge out. Sometimes it gets weird though, so be wary. And even control will allow you to put an edge loop in. And control shift will allow you to kind of move an edge loop if you need to. And this regular left click will allow you to adjust the shapes. Now when you're happy, you can turn Quaddraw off, right? And then you can see there's our geometry. We can kind of probably turn our symmetry off, and I can just go back into face selection mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, face. And then I just grab all the bad faces I don't want, right? Hold down control to deselect those. What we do is we just delete that, right? Delete that half. And then we go hold down right mouse button. So we go back to object mode. And then of course we can go mesh, mirror, right? Or the options box for mirror. I usually turn cut geometry off. I just find it technically can do something kind of cool, but it usually works a little weird, so I just find I don't really need it. X-axis is good though, because we've been building this on the X. Combine with original is usually good. World, offset 0, automatic merge. Now in this case, you see the automatic merge might be a little too high, right? Or you might want to kind of just tell it to do border edges, in that case no, merge border vertices. You might just turn that merge threshold down a little bit, right? So we can try typing 0.1. So sometimes that merge threshold is just a little too high, so you might need to turn that down a little bit when you mirror. So if you see weird stuff like that, like you see even here it's still a little too high because it's merging that one. So we might even try 0.05. Just enough so that the vertices right down the center will merge, but not so anything else will merge. So remember, when you do your poly mirror, you might need to adjust that merge threshold a little bit, right? And just keep in mind that in the mirror options itself, you can turn off automatic and set custom and set your number there too. So you can actually tell it to have a custom merge threshold and put the number in there instead of adjusting it after the fact. There it is. Now the cool thing is that this is objects have been mirrored over. You can actually turn Quaddraw on again and keep adding to it. So you can always turn Quaddraw on any object at any time you want to keep retopping. It's not one of those things you turn it on and you have to complete it, right? I could now add more to this. So Quaddraw can be turned on to any active object anytime. In this case, let's turn make live off so that the body is selectable. And of course, this clothing needs to be thickened. And remember, that's just extrude in object mode, right? If you hold down right mouse button, so you're in object mode, and you hit extrude, in this case I turn make live off so it doesn't try to snap it. We just grab that blue arrow, and there we go. And now we have thickened clothing and armor. Of course, that can be put in a smooth preview, or even at this point, just hit smooth on it, right? So that'll be our low resolution for that. And that is how we make our clothing with the retopo tool.